Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Amobi Okugo, host of Money Talks, a new podcast from a frugal athlete in partnership with Billion or Bust Media. Money Talks explores the world of business behind professional athletes. I speak with financial advisors, business managers, marketing and PR professionals who specialize in running the business of being a pro athlete. Tune into Money Talks on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find new episodes on billionourbustmedia.com and afrugalathlete.com. Again, billionourbustmedia.com or afrugalathlete.com.
Good day, folks. Welcome to the 2 Cents Podcast. I'm your host, Jay Richardson. Really excited today to get into some of the topics of the weekend and this week. As always, in the sports world, it's a hot week, and you know how we do it here. We're going to give you all the latest updates on what's happening in the sports world and where sports meets politics, meets life, meets people, meets black people, meets everybody. I think it's going to be really, really important for us today to get – all right, let's just get right into it, right? Top news of the hour, and this is within the last 12 hours this happened, which is something that everyone expected. We just didn't know when or how it would happen, but the Jacksonville Jaguars have officially traded probably the best cornerback in the NFL, and that's Jalen Ramsey, who a lot of people realize or know at this point that Jalen has not practiced or done anything for the for the Jacksonville Jaguars in a few weeks. He used up pretty much all of his vacation time. He really wanted to be traded. Him and Coughlin never got along, right? Everyone knows Coughlin, who pretty much runs the football operations for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Coughlin, former Super Bowl winning head coach in New York Giants, did a fantastic job there. Everyone knows in the league, guys, who have played for him and guys who played against him know his style. Coughlin's style is very old school. He's a very rigid coach. He doesn't like to cater to stars. He doesn't really like to cater to anybody. He treats everyone in the building, like workers, and that's just how he is. He's old school like that. They still hitting full pads on a Thursday. That's just one of those things that a lot of guys don't like, rubs them the wrong way. He's not with the new NFL. The last 5 years, how things have changed in the NFL. For those who don't realize when I say new NFL, so my rookie year in the NFL, it was still very, very old school, right? It was 2007, and feels like forever ago. And, we had 2 days, every other day in camp. We still, hit twice in the same day with full pads on, driving sleds, as far as linemen go. No days off. It was old school, bang, bang, we getting after it. We're working in the trenches kind of football, and that's Tom Coughlin style. This new NFL, so like my last year in the NFL in 2013-14, it was like Camp Cupcake, man. It was like a spa, you get there and you're only going to hit once every other day, if that. Some coaches don't like to hit more than once a week. No 2-a-days at all. That was forbidden, which I loved. And, a lot of water breaks. I don't remember getting that many water breaks. Okay, so Coughlin's old school. He doesn't like water breaks. He likes to hit. He likes all that other stuff. A lot of guys don't like that. And then he doesn't like divas and superstars. Jalen Ramsey is, I won't call him a diva. He's a superstar. I won't call him a diva because, it's not diva to say I don't like the situation I'm in and I have enough leverage to be able to change that. And that's exactly what he did. He didn't want to hold out. He didn't want to sit out. He got sick, mysteriously, decided he didn't want to practice all week, and then his girl had a baby, and he wanted to make sure he left for that and took some leave for that. And before you know it, he hadn't been in the building, and damn near over a week. And they were finally like, all right, dude, you clearly want to be traded, which he voiced through his agent. He did not want to make this public. Jalen Ramsey told his agent, I don't want this public. Go to the team, tell them I want to be traded, and we'll take it there. The team made it public. Why? It's what teams always do when they got a guy who's disgruntled. They have two decisions. If they decide they are going to let him go, they're going to smear him beforehand on the way out. So what are they going to do? They're going to release it, make him look like a diva, make him look like he's selfish, and that way, when that guy does get traded or or released, however it goes, the team looks like, yeah, we had to get rid of a problem. No, that's not always the case. Sometimes, the team's not doing things the right way, and they don't respect his talent. They didn't want to pay him. He's due to be paid huge. They weren't down for that, so fine. He's going to the Rams. The Rams are also going to be trading cornerback Marcus Peters to Baltimore. It's kind of a three-way deal, right? Baltimore gets Marcus Peters. The Rams get Jalen Ramsey, and then the Jacksonville Jaguars get a whole bunch of picks. Win, win, win. Everyone's happy. Okay, fantastic. That's big news, though, because now you look at the Rams, and what they really needed was a lockdown corner. Marcus Peters is a good corner, but he just wasn't he wasn't playing at the level we were used to seeing him play at. Aqib Talib got banged up. He's on IR. So, yes, this was huge for them. Now you got somebody to pair with Aaron Donald. You got a coverage guy, and you got a guy that will absolutely wreak havoc as he has been doing his entire career in Aaron Donald. Now, that was the top news just because that was the latest news. Here's what happened over the weekend that's really bothered me. And I say over the weekend, I mean in the NFL over the football weekend, which goes until Monday. Why do I say Monday? Because Monday night, the Detroit Lions played the Green Bay Packers in Green Bay, Lambeau Field. A few things happened in that game. Aaron Rodgers played good. Not great, but he played good. He threw some nice balls. He hit some guys in stride. He missed a couple, but he played good. Played good enough that they probably should have won. Problem is, Matt Stafford and the Detroit Lions actually played better. Matt Stafford played his balls off, man. Putting balls where they needed to be, taking hits, just leading the offense, calling the right audibles at the right time. The Detroit Lions defense played really well, played hard. Here's the problem with that game. The officiating was atrocious, and we were seeing a theme the last, a couple years, but really the last decade in the NFL. The officiating ever since the NFL lockout year in 2011, it was the year that, it's right in the middle of my career when we could not come to an agreement between the union and the NFL on a new deal. So there was a lockout. There was no football for about 6 months. The season was abbreviated. Everything was cut short. And they brought in a bum squad of officials, and the product was absolutely crap, right? From then on, it seems like the officiating has never recovered from the lockout year and has continued to go downhill to the point where in that New Orleans Saints game last year, divisional playoff game, one of the most egregious calls we'd ever seen in officiating history on that pass interference no call where the guy got absolutely smacked while he was in midair and they did not call the flag. That led to the NFL basically saying, all right, we're going to start reviewing pass interference. That obviously never been a thing. That's a thing now because the officials got it so wrong. Here's the problem with that. Every single time this season you see a review, it never gets overturned. So the officials are, literally, like 90% of the time it doesn't get overturned. So the officials are basically saying, you know what, even if we're wrong, we're going to double down on our decision to be wrong because we don't want to look as if we're inept, which we are. So there was a couple different penalties, and it was awful. I don't know how else to say it. You see a lot of guys in interviews after the game for the Detroit Lions trying their best not to get fined when asked these questions about, about the game and the officiating. And here's the thing. You can't really you can't say certain things, right? You can't attack the officials in a post-game press conference. That's an instant, obviously it's an instant fine, but also you can't even allude to the idea that the NFL or their officials had, made some mistakes. So you saw guys beating around the bush. I'm going to come out and say it. The refs were absolutely awful. It seemed like it was personal almost. It seemed like the refs had some sort of vendetta and wanted really badly to make sure that, the Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers won this game. This was a big one. Had Detroit won this game, there would have been a shifting of the guard right there in the NFC North, where you would have saw Detroit now be in first place, and that did not happen. And I know how the NFL is. I've been saying this for years. People really don't want to hear this. And when I said it back when I was playing for the Raiders, everyone kept saying, well, that's because you play for the Raiders, and that's probably why you feel that way, and stop with the conspiracy theories. Let me tell you something about the NFL. And this is just a little, peek behind the curtain for everybody listening. The NFL is show business. Anything you guys see on TV involves an element of show business, which means there's an element of scripting. I know. No one wants to hear that, right? No one wants to hear the idea that maybe some of these games were organized, right? The Detroit Lions defensive end, Flowers, he has a good idea of what that's about now. Whether he knew it or not, going into this game, Trey Flowers now knows that there are some things in the NFL that you can't stop, and that's the officials. Trey Flowers got called 2 times for illegal hands to the face. Both times his hands were in the offensive lineman's chest, grabbing the pad area right around the shoulder. It was very obvious what he was doing. It's called a long arm move. It's a technique that you see a lot of defensive linemen use. It's completely common. You see it all the time. I used it. You push them against the chest, you extend your arm, you try to get some separation, and then when you feel pressure, you release and flip your hips and go past them, right? That's what Trey Flowers was trying to do. Both times they were on critical third downs where there was either a sack or a turnover or something, and they called hands to the face on the defensive lineman, which extended the drive, which caused 2 scores for the Green Bay Packers. That is huge. The details to me at this point don't even matter. We know there's an issue with the referees in the NFL. There has been for years, and now it's becoming to the point where you're seeing outrage among sports commentators. I know Dan Orlovsky on ESPN in the morning went on like a tirade, right? I mean, he was upset, and you'll notice. I want everyone to notice former players are particularly rubbed the wrong way by these bad officiating nights, even more so than fans. Yeah, fans are pissed, especially if you're a Lions fan. Even Packers fans that I know were like, yeah, that was a little bit bad, man. Even they had to just be honest. But what will really piss off a former player is when we see it, because we know what to look for, because we're waiting for it. Almost like we know what this league's about, right? And we know that some things need to happen in order for the league to have the platform it has. What do I mean when I say that? What I'm kind of trying to hint at and say is, this is a star-driven league, not as much as the NBA, but it is a star-driven league. One of your biggest stars is Aaron Rodgers. You cannot have a playoffs without Aaron Rodgers. You have before, and numbers weren't great. He's the most talented quarterback, to me, still in the NFL. Not even just to me, he's the most talented quarterback in the NFL. Pat Mahomes is right there, but Aaron Rodgers just has a longer resume, right? A larger sample size. He's been doing it for longer. He's that guy, Super Bowl champion Aaron Rodgers. You want him in the playoffs. How do you make sure he's in the playoffs? Well, you sneak in some of these games, like this Detroit game early on, week 5, week 6, right around there. You make sure they win the critical ones like that one, the games that position you for the playoffs. You figure, yeah, it'll look bad, but it'll all blow over by about week 9. No one's going to be thinking about the Detroit game and that awful, 2 penalties, 3, really there's like 3 or 4 terrible calls. But no one's going to be thinking about that by week 9. And if the Packers are struggling, at least they got that win in their belt and they're on their way to being in the playoff hunt. And maybe they would have anyway, but they got the extra help. Why? Because the NFL wants certain teams, certain franchises, certain fan bases to have something to cheer for. Look for the Dallas Cowboys to start to get nudged in there towards about week 10. Y'all think I'm playing? Cowboys are struggling big time, and we're going to get into that too. Dak's going to – I don't know if it's going to cost Dak money or not, but as that happens, understand that the Cowboys fan base is one of the largest in the world, and they are going to want them in the playoffs. Why? More viewership, more butts and seats. This is the business of the NFL, and anything you see on that rectangular screen we all love to watch, that TV set, is show business, which means there's going to be an element of design, scripting. I know, it's crazy, Who would have thought that something that's shown on TV that brings in, $12 billion annually, or probably more than that, would have an element of control and scripting behind it. Yeah, that's how it goes, y'all. So understand that they're going to want the Cowboys in the playoffs too. It won't be because the Cowboys are a great playoff team. It'll just be because the NFL understands the brand and understands that would really boost their playoff numbers. I don't know if it'll happen this year because the Cowboys are really struggling, and that brings us kind of, to our next point is what really is going on with Dak and the Cowboys. I think people need to understand that the Cowboys right now are not the team they were last year. They're missing some key pieces in the secondary, key pieces along the defensive line from not just injuries, but also guys just, free agency and also, suspensions, stuff like that, things that there's just nothing they can do about that. But the Cowboys' biggest issue is going to be they're not running the football like they were in the past. Zeke Elliott's holdout really hurt the Cowboys. I don't think people kind of understand when you're not with the team, when the team's not trying its best to make sure it takes care of you right away, you're right away not going to do your best to take care of the team. So yeah, they finally got Zeke, got him paid, got him in there, and that's cool. But during that time, Zeke was not with the team. There was no kind of cohesion. There was no kind of, they weren't getting any practices in. He was not obviously in training camp. The product suffers on the field because of that, right? You get out there, Zeke's not running the ball the same. All of his numbers are down. You can see that clear as day, from receiving to rushing, yards per carry, all that stuff. Yeah. I don't do this podcast to discuss numbers. I do this podcast to discuss, trends and concepts and what's really happening. What's happening right now is the Cowboys don't want to admit that Jason Garrett is not the answer at head coach. Jerry's always going to double down. That's owner Jerry Jones is always going to double down on the fact that this is not Jason Garrett's fault. However, if you watch that game, Tony Romo was commentating. He said, man, this game had Jason Garrett's fingerprints all over it. Now, he said that during the telecast. I don't know if he meant that as like a sneak diss because they were playing so bad. But when you lose to the New York Jets, and I get it, Sam Darnold just returned from his mono and he had the S on his chest and he played his butt off, man. Sam Darnold's really coming on, but this is the Jets. This is like their first win of the season. Like, this is bad. The Jets are a bad football team. And they just beat the Dallas Cowboys, and it's because the Cowboys could not run the ball consistently. Dak could not make the key throws he needed to make. The defense could not get stops when they needed to get stops. The secondary struggled. They struggled at every level of football. Special teams struggled. And, yes, everyone's going to make it about Dak, and, wow, is this why Dak's not going to get his big contract because he's not playing at a high level? That's not really true. He started off hitting pretty well, playing at a very high level. They ran into some issues, but these issues aren't just Dak's issues. These are Cowboy issues. You don't really have a true number one big-time receiver for Dak to get that ball to. And I don't want to hear about Amari Cooper because his numbers are down. And also, he's just not that guy right now. Jason Witten maybe should have stayed retired, but not doing Monday Night Football because he was struggling with that too. He's just, he's going to run his little 7 yards, turn around, catch the ball, and fall down, and he hasn't even been doing that well. So when you look at this team, I love Jalen Smith, love, Van Der Esch, some of their defensive pieces. I really do. And, their linebackers are fantastic. But when you talk top to bottom as a football team, they're really, really struggling. Dak's going to get the brunt of this because he is the quarterback, and that's just how it goes. If they were playing great, then, it'd be Dak getting the brunt of, getting all the praise. So that's just how it is. We get that. But it's not all Dak. And even though I know he's a good quarterback with a lot of potential to grow into an even better one, possibly one day a great one, they have a lot of things to clean up. I don't know that Dak really is the problem here. Injuries are a huge factor. There's a whole bunch of things happening. Problem is they're not winning football games that they need to be winning, and they're close to being out of the playoff picture. Remember what I said, look for the NFL to start getting crafty with how their games are officiated, and if they can make it close, they'll get the wins because I got a feeling the refs are going to make sure that happens. We're going to see, and you guys are going to be like, oh, this fool might have been right about this. I don't know. I'm just telling you right now, that's how it goes. Last big story I think needs to be just discussed quickly. The NBA versus China, right? Like, what's going on with the NBA and China? We discussed already Daryl Morey's tweet last week. Basically a tweet of an image supporting the Chinese democracy and supporting their rights to freedom and their people, really the protesters who were getting treated horribly, gassed, and in some instances killed by their government for fighting for democracy and freedom. And we as Americans, we understand that fight. We understand the idea of loving democracy and freedom. But we always fail to realize is not every country does it how we do it. I said that before, and that's just always going to be the case. And we can't always force what we believe on every country because that's not our job. Our job is to make sure we police and do a great job in our country. So sometimes we do things like send out support, send out tweets and all that stuff. We know Daryl Morey sent out a tweet supporting it that had a huge backlash. The ramifications really affected the Laker-Brooklyn Nets game in China that week. They took down all of the signage from the NBA on the side of the buildings, took down pictures of LeBron and Kyrie and yada, yada, yada. The players weren't treated great because of it, and LeBron felt some kind of way about that. So when he got back, he had a little time to gather his thoughts, and he essentially tweeted out, man, you got to think before you tweet. And he was basically saying, Daryl Morey, bro, you really should have thought that one through. You didn't do all your research, and you tweeted out something that really got us in some hot water with China, and that wasn't great. Me and my teammates didn't enjoy that. Everyone blasted LeBron for, basically speaking about how Daryl Morey was ill-informed when he made that we sent that tweet out, and they were basically saying, well, LeBron seems very ill-informed in how he kind of was getting at Daryl Morey. And what I don't think people realize is, one, it's not LeBron's job to keep up with political. It's not just not his job to keep up with some of these political issues or socioeconomic issues or foreign policy issues, but it's also not his job to have to come to the defense of the NBA. He does it because he's the face of the NBA, and he felt like he was hearing it so much from his teammates and fellow colleagues in the NBA about how upset they were about how everything went while they were in China, that he has become the voice of the players over the years. We know that. He's not just become the voice of the NBA players. He's become the voice of the pro athlete voice, really, over the years, whether it be political or whether it be about financial issues, NCAA not paying the college athletes. LeBron was very vocal about that. Why? It's because he feels the weight of the responsibility of who he is, which is the number one athlete on planet Earth. And whether people agree with that or not, it's just the fact from his marketability, his earning. He'll be the next athlete billionaire behind Tiger Woods. That's just going to happen. And he also just has the biggest cachet and clout, as the kids call it these days. Like, he has that. So he feels like he needs to use that to, I guess, be a voice for the people he represents. I respect that position. I completely get it. Did his sound bites sound extremely informed? No, but I'm not. That's not his job to sound like a political correspondent. I don't expect that out of LeBron James. Why? He's in the thick of things with his career, and he's immersed in doing a job that takes up all of everything you got. So I get that. All I'll say about it is people got to realize, one, that's not his job. Two, I agree with what he meant, and I agree with the feel behind it. What he was basically trying to say was, yo, you put me and my guys in a bind, Daryl, when we were over there, and I really wish you would timed it up a little bit better. That's basically all he was trying to say. And I think that's the most important thing people got to take from it, whether you like how he said it or whether you like the fact that, he was getting at another NBA, I guess, colleague in the GM, Daryl Morey, for the Rockets, whatever. The bottom line is he shouldn't have tweeted that because it really put them in the bind. It doesn't mean LeBron hates democracy. It doesn't mean LeBron hates freedom. It means LeBron hates being overseas and getting treated poorly because of something someone else said. Think before you tweet. Something we say to players all the time, something we got to also say to executives now. That's all it was about. Last but not least, shout out Simone Biles for being the most decorated gymnast of all time. That is not a small thing. There is so many different, gymnasts over the last, history of decades of greatness. For her to be better than all of them, she's the Michael Jordan of gymnastics, and I don't think we're talking about that enough. I don't think she gets the respect or the credit that she's due for that. Why? Because it wasn't at the Olympics, it was at the Worlds. We'll see her at the Olympics again. She'll light it up again, and then maybe we'll get all the campaigns that she deserves, and she'll be back in all the commercials and all that. She deserves that. That little girl is unbelievable. I don't say little because she's young. I say little because she's 4'8". She's a special, special talent. She's the best at what she does in the history of the sport. She's just like Serena in that regard, and she should be held in the same light as great athletes, because she really is legendary. And that is all for this episode of the 2 Cents Podcast. I want to thank you guys for tuning in, listening. For my weekend listeners, I love it. On your commute, check this out. I still want to get more feedback. Make sure you reach out at 2 Cents Show at IG, J Richardson 99 on Twitter. I'm out there. Holla at me, and we will see you next time.